Today's training, obviously on trigger words, phrases, word tracks, things like that. Trigger words and phrases are only as good as your tonality and understanding when and how to change your tonality within the sale. I think tonality is extremely important, especially for the people that are doing telesales. But there are certain trigger words and phrases that do create sales pressure. So you're either creating pressure or you're calming down the sales pressure. And obviously our job is to bring the sales pressure down, as well as things you can say and probe into to kind of expand that gap of where they are and where they want to be in that problem solving process. So really when we're talking about kind of word tracks and things like that is just kind of gonna list a few. We'll just kind of go through this. And then I think it's better anyways, because if I had a PowerPoint or a word list, people are going to ask me, hey, will you send that to me? And that's not how you learn. You learn by writing it down over and over again, right? So obviously first thing is diffusers, right? Some way to calm down the obstacle, objection, whatever it is. Usually it's when someone wants to pop at you, you just hit them with a diffuser. A lot of people use the perfect. I'm not a big fan of it. I use not a problem, right? You guys hear me say that thousands and thousands of times. Hey, Rex, that's not a problem. And then go into it. So a lot of times when handling objections, we don't use those diffusers, and that's when they seem more combative. Obviously, handling objections is always going to be combative, but if we can decrease the amount of combativeness in those conversations, people are more likely to be swayed by what you say. So hitting that with, hey, not a problem, and then going into your objection handling, or okay, I understand, right? And then going into your objection handling is going to bring down that sales resistance, right? Hey, if it's not a problem, and the way you do that, and I was just talking to an agent about this the other day, is you guys got to detach yourself from the outcome. And that's how we start becoming combative, is we're so concerned about the outcome. Like we always say, right? Whether you make this sale or not, it's not going to change your life. Nothing changes. So detach yourself from that outcome, and then you stop being as combative. Because I hear people in the Zoom room when they're talking to either trying to set appointments and they're like, why? What do you mean by that? It's like, calm down, detach yourself from the situation, and then use a diffuser when transitioning into your objection handling, because of the fact that it drops combativeness, it drops that sales pressure. So, hey, Rex, that's not a problem, but let me ask you, right? Hey, Rex, that's not a problem, but when you say this, right, it's a lot more smooth. And that also comes with tonality that we'll address. But diffusers being the infamous perfect, right? I'm not a huge fan of it, but some people use it because it does catch people off guard. I like not a problem, because if you detach yourself from the outcome, nothing is a problem in your conversation. Whether they want to buy or not, it's not a problem. If they have an objection, it's not a problem. Anytime you're transitioning from receiving objection to overcoming objection, you want to have that pivot of a diffuser to do that. Hey, perfect, not a problem, understand, totally understandable. Let me ask you, right? Oh, I see why you say that. Let me ask you, right? It's some sort of diffuser to transition. So you're not just hitting a brick wall, you're hitting the brakes and slowing down before you do so, right? So those are huge, right? Whenever handling objections, make sure you use a diffuser prior to handling an objection. Otherwise, you're going to sound combative. Otherwise, you're going to sound salesy. Otherwise, you're going to build more pressure, because sometimes it's not the objection handling skills you have, but the lack of diffusing you have in the middle. Because I can say anything smooth as butter, right? But if I don't diffuse that tension first, it's just going to come back as a pop in the face, and people aren't going to be as receptive to what you say. So, not a problem, Rex, let me ask you this, or hey, not a problem, whatever it may be, right? Diffusers, pretty simple, not a lot of them, very powerful. Depending on what works best for you, hey, not a problem, hey, that's totally understand. I see where you're coming from. Those are diffusers, right? You're getting on the same level. You're not, it's not making anything an issue, right? And by detaching yourself from the sale, you no longer get combative when talking about whatever happens, setting the appointment, making the sale, whatever it is. Minimizers. And you guys got to get really good at minimizing price and maximizing product or solution or whatever it is. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, right? When people like almost awkwardly sell graded policies like they're not a good thing, right? So maximizing the value, and you mostly do that with tonality, which we'll get into, but it's like 15 1,000 like pronunciation dollars, only $37 a month. So you drop that tonality, but utilizing only just putting that in front of any price. Anytime you're talking about price, you need to use minimizers because it's not what you say, but how you say it. So you can say, hey, it's $37 a month, or hey, it's only $37 a month. Those are two totally different meanings, right? Because $37 a month versus hey, it's only $37 a month is it just by the tonality and the minimizer used, right? Remember, price is a minimizer, product is a maximizer. Usually maximizations are in your tonality rather than the word you say to preface it. Minimizations drop tonality, right? And using that only, right? By minimizing, it's just gonna be, right? So that's really key when coming into, and then same thing with word tracks going into, this is one of my, when I'm using the diffusers and minimizers, it's kind of a combination of the both, but I usually give 2 good not a problems in my objection handling or whatever it may be. And then on the 3rd to 4th go, I always leverage that, hey, please don't misconstrue my enthusiasm for pressure. I'm just extremely passionate about what I do. And then I go into my objection handling. And so the reason being is because you're calling out the elephant in the room, right? Hey, I'm enthusiastic about what I do. I'm passionate, right? You understand that there's sales pressure. And so now you're calling it out and saying, hey, please don't misconstrue my enthusiasm for pressure. I'm not trying to pressure you. That's an extremely strong word track to use when you have to loop through 3 or 4 objection handlings. And more importantly, if you're not looping through 3 or 4 objection handlings, you're probably giving up way too soon in this sale. And that comes from not detaching yourself, is you're worried about holding on to this client like they're actually going to answer when they tell you to call them back. They're not, right? They're just not. Being able to loop through, like you can ask Shannon, when we're in homes, like I'm either getting like 7 to 8 no's. I usually say they're going to throw me out, but I mean, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5", 240. So if they can throw me out, I'm probably walking out quickly because that's a scary person. I'm like not getting up from that table until I've either gone through 7 loops or I'm just like, this guy's going to be a chargeback. So we need to push a little bit more, right? A lot of times you're not getting the sales because you're not asking for it enough, right? But there's a way to do that once you get your objection, not a problem. Let me ask you, things like that. And then as you get heightened, because every time you overcome an objection, the sales pressure, regardless how smooth you are, it raises, right? It raises. So you have to use stronger diffusers as the sales pressure raises. That's where you say, hey, please don't misconstrue my enthusiasm for pressure. I'm just extremely passionate about what I do. Now, let me ask you, Rex, right? So it's a very smooth transition and like, dude, I'm not trying to pressure you into anything. I'm just extremely passionate, right? Like, let's level. It's called a reasonable guy tonality. It's like, come on, man. Utilizing that is a really good way to get past that 3rd and 4th objection. Enthusiasm for pressure. Please don't misconstrue my enthusiasm for pressure. I'm just extremely passionate about what I do. So you got the right words, they're just mixed around, right? It's a really strong diffuser after you're extremely heightened, right? Because people are going to tell you, hey, you're being pushy, you're being this, hey, whoa. If you say things in the sense that they're calming, right? It comes with your tonality. Hey, please don't misconstrue my enthusiasm for pressure, right? They know what pressure, they may not know what misconstrue means, but they can use context clues, dude, come on, you know? But yeah, so, and then that's kind of the main chunk of it.